Welcome to EQ at Work. Today we're going to be talking about resilience and the need to find the energy to build well-being, the need to find our capacity to continue to work and bring people together in this time that for most of us is, I'm tired of this word, unprecedented. We have guests today sharing with you their expertise on resilience and their experience of resilience at work. We're seeing increasing amounts of data from around the world that's saying people are suffering, people are struggling, people are having a hard time motivating themselves and motivating each other. People are exhausted. And there are all of these factors in the pandemic and beyond that are keeping us from bringing ourselves into the workplace to do the work that we need to do, bring ourselves to our lives to do the work that we need to do. And somehow, if we're going to move ahead, we're going to have to find new resources, new strengths, new ways of building ourselves and each other up. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let me bring in our panelists, and we're going to ask them to introduce themselves. I'd like you each to tell us one reason why you think resilience is more important or more threatened than ever before. And Joni, we're going to start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Josh. I think it's more threatening because our habits, timetables, and experiences in life have changed. So the remote working, we've got new ways of being, and actually we're battling to reconfigure how we do that. And we're battling to reconfigure how we re-energize after 12, 14 hours of being online. So the puzzle pieces in life have changed dramatically, and many people are not yet equipped to deal with the new format of life. And they need to learn those skills.
Thank you. Chris, let's go to you. Introduce yourself and tell us either why resilience is more important or more threatened than ever.
Hi, I'm Chris Williams, co-founder along with Lara with Momentum 4. And along with Joni and Lara, we created a Resilience Up profile. And this is a direct need to what we see going on. We've worked in this domain for years now. But in terms of resilience, it's been a word out there for many years. But I think really in the last 6 to 8 months, people are really having to look at that word and what does it actually mean? What does it mean to me? How can I improve my resilience? Are there indications when I may be losing my resilience? And then how do I find out more about my personal resilience? And it's then providing some actionable steps and making those steps known so people can actually take some small chunk behavioral changes to actually improve their resilience framework.
Morgan, let's go to you.
Hi, Morgan Wright. I'm Chief Security Advisor for SentinelOne. Part of my background's a little different than some of the others. I came out of an 18-year career in state and local law enforcement, worked in the justice, defense, and intelligence communities, before and after 9/11. And so when I think about resilience, I think back to what it took to overcome these huge obstacles, these huge things as you're working in countries, trying to build solutions, trying to keep people safe. And I see this now to me, it's a mindset. To me, it's that you just have to realize you've got to buckle down. The military has a term, it's called embrace the suck. It's going to be bad for a while, but look, to me, resilience is really a mind game. Have you prepared your mind and prepared your body? And as Joni and Laura and Chris were also saying, prepared your habits. So for me, I think if the true test of leadership will be in this next year, will we have the right leadership to lead us through this pandemic, to take care of people, and to really instill the true tenets of what resilience means for their workforce, for their employees, for their family.
Lara, how about you?
I think, just sort of adding to what the others have said, bringing it back to an individual level, what I'm finding working with organizations and individuals is resilience is about giving yourself permission to shift some behaviors, because everyone's saying about the new norm, all these different ways of working that Joni was talking about. And what I'm finding is people are not enabling themselves to take breaks. The simplest of things, it's not rocket science, being resilient. But you're right, what you said, Morgan, it is the mindset. Why am I not enabling myself to move from my desk after 8 hours of Zoom calls? So resilience, let's demystify it, as we say, let's simplify it and go back to basics and work with individuals to help them maintain optimal well-being.
You just said the dreaded word Zoom calls, and I think we've, I suppose, all experienced this brain suck by the end of the day. Joni, what sparked your passion for resilience?
Gee, Josh, that was some 14 years ago that sparked my interest. I've always worked in teams, but I had a life tragedy. And my husband died 14 years ago, and my children were 7 and 9. They were tiny. And I just, as a single mom and a widow, I realized I'm going to have to, the proverbial bounce back I don't really like, but I'm going to have to bounce forward and kind of be agile with how I structure my life. So it was a heartfelt emotional need that got me first interested in resilience. And then when I went back to the corporate teams that I was working with at the time, I just noticed that people struggle in different ways. Very much to what Lara says, some of the things are really basic. And from a team cohesive and a team performance perspective, I noticed the very small behavioral shifts that have become sustainable for me in forming a new life with my daughters. I could actually take that as an individual and impart that to corporate teams. So I've been on this journey for about 14 years now.
Joni, you and Lara and Chris have been working on a custom version of the emotional intelligence assessment focused on resilience. And Lara and Chris, maybe you could talk for a moment about why are you doing that? What is that connection for you of emotional intelligence and resilience and measuring it? What's that about?
Like any diagnostic, what does it do? Why do we have assessment tools? Why do we have diagnostics? Because people like data. And I think people, when they receive the data and they see it in black and white, it's an actionable way of jumping into action, and shifting. We wanted to create something that was simple, usable, and that people could see very easy where their energy was leaking. That's how we talk, energy leaks. And we wanted to enable people to almost just recognize, okay, if I'm leaking energy there, what can I do? How can I get that energy back? Because ultimately we want to inspire actionable resilience for an optimal life. That's our purpose. That's our strapline. So for me, it's very basic. It's the data is the starting point of the narrative for what comes next. And that might be, an intervention of coaching and training and development, a further need. But actually for some people, the data is enough for them to shift and change, small changes. Like we said, it's not rocket science, but make a shift into action. So that's the reason why we wanted to deliver something. And I have to say, we started this way before COVID.
And Morgan, how about you? What got you interested in resilience?
Even before resilience was a word, to me it was about the warrior mindset. Because I started as a police officer. I was a state trooper to where I was the only person that might be out for 6 counties. I covered a rural area. We had a lot of crime going on, a lot of drug trafficking. And I might be the only person out there for 45 minutes. I had no choice. I had to be victorious. I had to overcome. I had to win the engagement regardless of what it was, whether it was 1-on-2, 1-on-3. I had no choice. So, and then I looked at my friends in the military, special forces, and really what it all boils down to is I really learned a long time ago. It's about training your mind. It's about the mindset. I know I keep repeating that, but when you see these things happen to where it is a matter of life and death for some people, I've seen and documented studies of where people have suffered wounds that are not fatal, but they talk themselves into dying because they thought they were going to die. And I see so much of that mindset going on right now. Look, is it bad? Is it terrible? Yes, but you take the world as you find it, not as you wish it was. If you embrace the suck, I've seen several people say comments, it's a novel. It's not novel. The military, any country has been doing this for a long time. Think about going into a foreign country for 2 years, on an assignment, and you have no choice but to complete the assignment. So for me, this started probably, back in my early, 20s when I started getting into law enforcement military. It's always been a mindset I have about the will to win, the will to survive. And it's just translated now into a way that Laura, Chris, and Joni have really encapsulated it into a tool to where we can now start measuring and giving people a roadmap to how to achieve that mindset.
Well, we had several people in the chat resonating with "Embrace the Suck," and that the whether from England or Korea, there seems to be a need from that, and we have colleagues from around the world here joining us, and so all of you who are here on the live stream. I would like to know, for you, as San Okul wrote, what is resilience for you? What does resilience mean to you in your cultural context, in your place in the world, as you think about being more resilient? What does that mean? And welcome. So, while people are thinking about that, let me turn this question to you, Joni. Morgan's told us something about what resilience means for him and his background. What does resilience mean for you?
So what Chris, Lara, and I have done is looked at, as Lara said earlier, demystifying resilience. So I'm going to give you two answers, Josh. The first answer is kind of a bigger macro view. So the macro view is that actually, if you're going to be resilient, you need to firstly be prepared. Like, what is in your imaginary resilience toolbox? And we all carry that around with us. To Morgan's point around a mindset issue, or emotionally how we navigate something, or physically how we manage, if we do have lack of sleep, how we look at kind of our North Star, our guiding light. So we need to be prepared is step one. Step two is the proverbial bounce back. And step three is really the bounce forward with agility. So it's really in many parts of this chaos we live in, there is opportunity, and it's quite exciting. So if you are resilient, you will see that opportunity in that bounce forward. That's the first answer. The second answer is how we have defined and demystified resilience, is that there are 4 interconnecting dimensions. And not one of them is more important than the other. They all feed into each other. So it is your body, it's the mind, it's the emotions, and fourthly, your sense of purpose. And we are finding when people, as Lara said earlier, when they look at that data from the Resilience Up assessment, they go, okay, I see here's my strength, here's my area of opportunity, and it really starts a very different conversation as to how I choose to self-manage.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect most of us are quite familiar with the idea that there's this kind of body dimension, mind dimension, heart, emotion dimension. Mm-hmm. What's the purpose piece? What does that have to do with resilience?
Should I carry on, or Lara, do you want to carry on? Okay. Oh. So the purpose piece, no, the purpose piece is so inextricably linked, because when you do have a kind of, this is my reason on the planet, this is my North Star, this is my sense of guiding light, this is why I exist, that interrelates with, having that self-management piece around how do I choose to move during the day? How do I choose to really understand and name my emotions to tame them? How do I choose to make sure that I prioritize sleep? How do I choose to really think about my critical thinking and decision making and my intrinsic motivation? So the North Star purpose piece, we're actually finding a lot of people, when they get that and they understand that dimension of resilience, go, oh my goodness, this is, was a missing dimension for me. I knew a little bit about eat, sleep, move from body. I knew about my emotions. I knew about my mind, but I'd never really grappled with the sense of being and my purpose on the planet.
And Lara, what are we? Oops, Tom took it away. What were we just looking at there?
Was that the 4 dimensions, Tom? Yeah. I think I've got my glasses on, but I can't read. I think it's the 4 dimensions. But I think just to add to what Joni said, Josh, if I may, on purpose, it's really interesting, because the tool that we've just released, we're really in the infancy stages of release. And we've had about 350 people go through it. And purpose has been a huge part of people's opportunity for growth that we've discovered. And quite rightly, because we've released it in this pandemic and times that are, I'll say it again, unprecedented. It's people have lost that future. And for some people, they literally have lost that sense of direction, and the uncertainty is a killer of purpose. So if you bring it back to a micro level, for just to build resilience, it's about focusing on what is possible today, what is possible tomorrow, and just sort of, reaching out and actually what's important to me, what are my values, and how am I aligning those values with the choices I'm making today, tomorrow, and maybe, the next month, the next year. But I think right now people are very, very in the moment and having to focus on purpose in a different way.
And I think the moment has changed. There's been a paradigm shift in purpose just in the 6 months. Because if we were to look at purpose back in the case of where we were in France at the time, and obviously directly related into Europe. But when people first started getting locked down, and for the first time for some people started working remotely, in terms of engaged purpose, it went through the roof, because for many people it was a novel thing. They were at home, they were able to walk the dog, see more of the kids, they were still engaged with their work. But what we're seeing now, 6 months down the line, through COVID fatigue, for one of the maybe a term that's being used, people are becoming really disengaged with their purpose now. But it's not, sometimes it's not just looking at purpose for this disengagement, because along the way also other areas of the 4 dimensions have been eroded. And it's amazing how something as simple as, for example, skipping lunch because you're so busy on back-to-back Zoom calls can impact on your purpose. And let me explain. So you skip your lunch, you now get hungry, so you get anxious. Anxious may lead to an argument with someone at home. That stops you sleeping. You wake up, you're tired. You can't achieve what you want to in the day. And this erodes your purpose for the macro, as Lara's talking about, in the moment of the day. But also this can be a cyclical process that becomes a habit. And your long-term purpose, where you link your values to your purpose, is eroded as well.
Yeah, let me quote a very famous, probably more famous than Shakespeare, to my English friends, Mark Twain. He said the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. And I think it's that purpose. And I've seen a lot of comments about purpose. To me, part of my purpose is maybe it changes, but I believe I'm destined to do more than what I've done in the past. There's always enough time to become what you might have been, was another great quote I keep up here too. So I really think if you define that purpose, and to me, the way I keep my purpose front and center is having a set of routines that keep me grounded. I get up in the morning, I do certain things. This last weekend, because I was staying indoors, I've got a Peloton bike. And part of this mindset for me is we did 100-mile, what we call a century. We rode 100 miles on the Peloton. That's kind of tough. I love the Peloton. I love riding outdoors. Outdoors, you can coast, you can take breaks. Peloton, if your feet aren't moving, you aren't accumulating miles. And so the mindset, the discussion we have, what's my purpose? My purpose is to complete 100 miles. I just got on the bike and started doing it and said, I will complete this. And I did in about 4.5 hours, averaging about 22 miles an hour. And people said, how did you do it? I said, I didn't think about it. I had my purpose was get on the bike, complete the 100 miles. There is nothing else that I am focused on right now except this. And I go back, and I think the purpose is the big thing. Why am I here? What are the things that I'm doing to support my purpose in life? If you've got a strong enough why, the how, and Simon Sinek writes the book, about why, and a lot of people have talked about why, but I think if you really understand your purpose, everything else conspires in the universe, like the alchemist said, to conspire to help you achieve your goal. But without a clear why, without a clear roadmap, a direction you're going, as the great Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there.
Actually, Josh, if I build on what Morgan's saying, sorry, Lara, is that I can flip that story around and use a personal example here, is that Chris, Lara, and I have been working together for over 18 months and really looked at what is our why for Resilience Up. And we're all very similar in the way we approach things, as in the 3 of us. And we cracked it quite easily. And actually, we put this into the e-learning of Resilience Up, is how do you crack a purpose statement? And for us, it was, we answered a few questions, we played it around with each other, and very quickly we came up with, and Lara has already said it, to inspire actionable resilience for an optimal life. So here's the real hand-on-heart cameo. I woke up and I remember it was the 2nd of September in Johannesburg, and 1st of September, it's spring day here, the season changes, we've got beautiful flowers that come out. It was, it's an exciting time of the year as a season changes. And I really woke up that day feeling very grim, very sad, very, there have been a lot of, in my network of people, not necessarily my immediate family, but lots of death around me, not necessarily COVID. And I woke up that day feeling really, really grim, to the point I'm a high energy person where I thought, it's a duvet day, I just can't face the world. Anyway, to Morgan's point around my habits and rituals, I got to my desk, I had my lovely cup of coffee, I had my hot water and lemon, and I sat here, had my coffee, still felt really sad and grim. I thought, am I feeling sick? I'm just not Joni today. So I decided to do some breathing, a breathing technique, which we've also got in our e-learning. And I went outside, I've got a mini trampoline, and I just did a little bit of rebounding on that, not to run, not to jump. And I thought, okay, mindfulness, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to look at that beautiful blue sky, look at the new leaves coming out in the oak trees. And what happened for me, because our purpose statement is tattooed on our brain, I got off there not wanting to think about my purpose, but my purpose came to mind. And I thought, yeah, the reason my why on the planet, as Mark Twain said, it's my second, reason I was born, is to inspire actionable resilience. And I came back to my desk. I didn't shoot the lights out that day by any manner of means, but I shifted the dial on some of the stuff I wanted to get done. And my gratitude moment that night was, I'm so happy and that I have got this guiding light, that I know why I am on this planet. So it's just such a beautiful intrinsic motivator when you know your why. It's quite a magnificent feeling, and I'm forever grateful that the three of us cracked that.
I want to just go to some of the comments from our participants here in the live stream. Self-compassion as an essential part of resilience. It's not something that we've talked about yet, and I think it's quite an intriguing and challenging piece. Quick thought?
It's not a quick one.
I think sometimes we're the hardest people on ourselves are ourselves. I think sometimes, look, I even saw this with in the United States yesterday was Thanksgiving. So traditionally a lot of people eat, and get family together. They couldn't do that. But even the experts, the health gurus, the fitness gurus are saying, cut yourself a break, have a little compassion as well for yourself. Look, I think too many people try to do way too much because they think the weight of the world is on their shoulders, that it's up to them to do everything. And it's like, I'm sorry, pal, you're not storming the beaches here at Normandy. It is not that important. Number one, nobody dies. Number two, it's nobody cares. Sometimes I think we almost have to be just a little tough on ourselves from a thinking standpoint to get to that self-compassion to say, cut yourself a break. If you burn the candle at both ends, you burn out twice as fast. You've got to stop, take some time, like Joni talked about, Laura and Chris. I did their tool. I learned a lot of stuff about myself, and one of the things I realized is it's okay to say no to stuff. It's okay to say, hey, look, I'm taking a break. I'm taking a mental break. And I think the whole issue of compassion, if you can't be compassionate for yourself, how do you expect to be compassionate for your team? How do you expect to have that empathy that you need to survive in this world? So it all starts with me. It all starts here. If I don't have the mindset, if I don't have the compassion, if I don't have the empathy, if I don't have the purpose, how can I expect that out of other people? So you have to set the example, I think.
And I think, Morgan, to add to that, that's exactly what I'm finding in my one-to-one coaching and the work that I'm doing with many different teams is that permission, because the self-compassion, people are not giving themselves permission to take a break, to take care of themselves. That, like you say, we are the worst. We are our worst enemy sometimes. And what I'm finding in conversations, by having the data, it starts the narrative and gives them permission to look at it and go, yeah, crikey, I really do need to be, some self-care is needed here. I need to be kind to myself. So I'm quite interested in why, it has that become more of an issue in these current times, because I'm certainly seeing a lot of people who are not showing compassion for self.
So there's another comment here. JP talks about being in school and the noble goal being very motivating. There is a dark side of that, which is, I think a lot of us, when we feel driven by purpose, it's very easy to move into that place of self-sacrifice. And how do we kind of find that balance between the being fueled by purpose as opposed to being obsessed by purpose?
Yeah. In these current times, it's difficult. It's that recalibrating. For me, it's defining, having the ability to flex and bend and adopt a new purpose. Because if we become fixated or obsessed, like you said, Josh, there, then we're in trouble. You know, we're setting up some negative habits. I feel we need to be able to recognize that things are shifting quite rapidly, and how do we shift, and how do we be agile? We talk about being agile with energy in the resilience up tool, and I think we need that right now to shift.
I think also where you do get that sort of that one track mind on purpose is very much a transactional scenario rather than a transformative scenario, and there is a big difference. So I think what we're seeing right now, certainly in the conversations we're having, even though the screen time is sapping our energy, what we're getting now are some very sort of, the conversations are less transactional and more visceral. You're really getting in a deep level, and you can draw out, once again, that true purpose in people through our coaching.
You know, and just real quick, a running joke between Laura, Chris, and I is I'm a Tommy Bahama fan. If I could outfit my entire wardrobe with Tommy Bahama, I would do it. And for one reason, one of the things I think how I balance that, you don't get overwhelmed with purpose to where it becomes obsessive as opposed to a guiding principle. I don't take you got to get to the point where you need accountability from a friend, some people who will tell you the way the world is, not the way that you want it to be. And for me, I just don't take myself seriously. It's like when Laura said crikey, my first thought was, are you Australian? That sounds like something Steve Irwin would say. Crikey. It's a crock, but I think part of this too is with these calls, with stuff like that, you can't take yourself too seriously. Somebody said you got to, it's okay to be laid back. And that's my thing too. This makes me feel good to where I get to the point, if anything's going on, I realize, you know what? I feel good. You don't take the world so seriously, because guess what, guys? As much as you think you can change it, you can't. You can do your part. You can do what's around you. I can affect what's around me. But that's all you can do is all you can do. And so I focus on doing all that I can do that affects me. And again, last thing is, we're Tommy Bahama. You will feel good, man. and don't take yourself seriously.
And adding to that, I think also there's a real distinction in terms of being driven and having purpose.
Yes.
What we're finding is you could be in your own mind. You could be in your own mind full of purpose, but is it your own purpose, or is it the purpose of someone else? And you see a lot of this within the corporations that we work with. People believe they really work with purpose, but they don't. They are working towards the purpose of the stakeholders. And there's a real disjoint there. Often when you start scratching the surface on that, you find out their values, their own personal values, are no way aligned with this purpose that they've been chasing for sometimes 20 years.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd like to take, just to link purpose, self-compassion, and leadership. Because exactly building on what Chris is saying, is that what I'm seeing in corporates is that this huge drive from the leader, which looks like purpose, but actually they're cracking that whip, and actually not being compassionate towards their people. So, the emails are going out at ungodly hours in the morning and the evening, and then people don't know how to self-manage. So they're answering at 5 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night. And I'll loop it back to what Morgan said earlier, taking life very seriously. Have I still got a job? I better show that I'm driven and I'm hardworking and I'm there, every whim, and I'm online and always on. So it's kind of, we've got to look at this leadership style of this heavy driving that is exacerbating the lack of well-being in organizations. And we're seeing that in all the surveys. So Deloitte have just launched a worldwide trend survey, and people are saying well-being, 82% of organizations are not equipped for their people with well-being and remote working. And how does this all work together?
So I'd like to continue on this workplace theme for a minute. And maybe we have in the Resilience Up tool, you have a process. And maybe we could hear a little bit about how this cycle, this process works in the workplace. And what is this about?
So we wanted to make this actionable, Josh, and so we've created the resilience cycle for people to shift to action. And so we all know, I guess, in the field of learning and development and working as coaches and training, that awareness is key here. You know, we if we want to choose and be proactive, then we have to have the awareness and know ourselves to do that. So we created this to give people that solution in the tool, so it's coachable, and obviously for coaches to use with their coachees as a tool as well. So from awareness, you know, once we're aware of where the energy leaks are and what's affecting our resilience, we can start to identify actually what do we believe about the area of opportunity that we're faced with, you know. And it could be that I was hearing a lot early days of people saying, well, in the body dimension, my area of opportunity, I've dropped my exercise. You know, I used to go out running or cycling or, you know, swimming, whatever it was. And actually now I'm Zoomed. I'm on back-to-back Zoom calls. And so my body dimension is actually taking a hit here. And
did you say Zoomed?
Yep.
Like zombie? Okay.
Yep. Zoomed. There's lots of walking around zombies, Josh, you know. And so I think the awareness is key, because we don't recognize sometimes that we've got ourselves into this difficult place. So we then start to unpack what are some of those limiting beliefs holding you back from getting out there, going for a walk, taking a break, having some self-compassion. And actually, what are some of the beliefs that you need to hold to enable you to go and do that? So, you know, once you've looked at that, we can look at the impact. So what's the impact that it's having on you in your overall resilience and your overall well-being? You know, by me not getting out on my bike, for me, that's a huge impact, because I'm miserable as sin if I'm not out on my bike or I'm not able to exercise in some form. That's my go-to resilience up, you know, fuel. You know, that's my strength. So the impact for me, if I'm not doing that, is catastrophic. So then we want to come back to patterns and look, so actually how are you measuring success here? What's the pattern that you will recognize that you're doing this well? And how does this impact on the other dimensions within the resilience framework? So it's like a spinning top. Joni, when we first designed this, said, oh, it's like one of those old-fashioned spinning tops that you spin, because you need that agility. You need the energy to be able to shift to action. So it's never ending. So once you've identified the pattern, you're back to awareness. And I think that's the key thing here, that we always have off days. We're always going to be, you know, challenged or have an opportunity in a dimension on any day of the week. And the more we can create that awareness, the more we can bounce forward with agility and energy.
Great. And then while we're exploring the tool a little bit, so this is part of the Resilience Up custom tool, which is a specialized version of the emotional intelligence assessment to really bring in these dimensions of resilience. Can someone tell us what this graphic is showing?
Yeah, sure. I can, or you, Lara, whatever. So what we've got in the epicenter here are the 4 resilience dimensions. And what's very interesting, you know, building on the fact that this is a diagnostic that enables that really good self-awareness and narrative, is it's like throwing a pebble in a pond. You've got those 4 dimensions, and what is the ripple effect? So we're having rich discussions with individuals and actually teams as well as to what their performance indicators look like. So in our report, we've actually got a percentage for each of these 8. Of course, if you take 100% and divide it by 8, you get 12.5%. So I had a coaching call with the CEO this afternoon, and she was really excited about the fact that her performance indicators are between 14%, her best performance indicator down to 10. So it showed her agility, and actually it matched with really how she understands her team and her entire organization. But I have had other coaching calls where people have got 16 or 17% for some of the performance indicators, and then others are down at 4 and 5%. And I had a really interesting conversation with a lady who works at a bank the other day, and she said, look, retrenchments, and I'm now doing 2 roles in the bank, and I'm really doing them well, and I think I'm balancing life really well, and I'm making good decisions, and I've got a great network, and I really feel like I'm, influencing those 2 departments. And then when she came to this page 4, she looked at what is the trade-off. And we often use the phrase in well-being, are you trading your health for your wealth? Because her health and her balance were way down at 4 and 5%. And she's got 2 young children at home. She's a single mom, but she's just clawing onto the work part of her life and neglecting other things because of the fear of being retrenched herself. So it was quite a wake-up call as to what different actions she's going to take to really readjust her life given this data.
It reminds me real quick of an anecdote I heard from a nurse who wrote a book about, people and some of their dying wishes and stuff. And one of the things I thought was interesting is out of that book, nobody ever said, gee, on their deathbed, I wish I had spent more time in the office or more time working. The biggest regret in life is always not spending the amount of time you need while you've got it. To do that. And I think that goes back to purpose. I think that to me, it's a health thing is a big thing too. Like Laura was saying, getting on the bike. But I don't think I challenge you to find anybody who says, as their days are coming to an end, gee, if I'd only spent more time working, more time in the office, I would have been happier. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Morgan, as a business leader, you took this assessment and you're thinking about how this works in your business. So what's something you learned in this process? You mentioned it earlier. How does that apply to you as a leader?
I think, so here's the challenge. By 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. And it means people my age, believe it or not, I just turned 60. I know the hair looks good, the clothing. It's hard to believe. I get it. No. But one of my other roles is I'm a senior fellow at the Center for Digital Government. And last year I was in about 30 of the state capitals in the U.S. Doing keynotes. And part of this was challenging people to say this was before COVID, as I call 1 BC, 1 year before COVID. How will you change? And I think that's the biggest thing for folks like me and other folks who are getting up in the area of leadership in their age is how will I adapt, not make people change to fit my view of the world, but how do I change to fit the way the world really is? And how do I enable people to become the leaders of tomorrow? And for me, the tool, when I took it, I was kind of surprised because I think, to me, I had a fundamental shift, not only from turning 60, but with COVID, it impacted the way I thought about things and what I really thought was important. And I tell you the reason I say that, I reached over and I got this. This is how I keep it in perspective in terms of leadership. This is from the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. This is a friend of mine who died in the line of duty, Kent Newport, Trooper Kent Newport. First time he ever rode with the state trooper was with me. He died during a police chase involving a suspect in a violent crime. And, and it made me realize in terms of a leadership standpoint, I've got more years behind me than I have ahead of me. What will I do to honor his memory? What will I do to say, when my time comes, have I done the things that I can do to leave this world better than how I found it, to leave it better for friends like mine? And so real quickly, Joshua, I think for me, as this tool exposed, it really, if you're honest with the tool, it will expose your thinking that you subconsciously, what you were kind of it's that nagging thought back there that brings it to the forefront and says, look, dude, you've got more years behind you than you have ahead of you. You need to deal with this, and you need to deal with this in a way that when your time comes, and everybody's time will come, nobody gets out of this world. Death and taxes, 2 things nobody can escape, right? So when that time comes, will I equip myself to where if I'm standing regarding of your whatever religion you believe in, but at some point, if there's accountability, will I be able to account for my actions on earth? And I think this tool really I think as the older you get, this tool really brings it in perspective, and it says, look, this is real. What are you doing personally to make the world better and to lead the next generation of people so that they will leave it better? And always, as we say in Kansas, little farm boy thing, did you leave the wood pile a little bit higher than what it was when you found it? So it's always leaving the wood pile a little higher.
Yeah.
Thank you. What about with the other clients in the corporate sector? What are you seeing when they start talking about this data?
Well, I was just going to say where we met Morgan just quickly, because I think it's quite interesting, and it sort of fits in with the question, Josh, because Morgan, we met through cybersecurity that looks after business resilience, and we were looking after the human capital element of human resilience, and we were collaborating to go to the CISOs within organizations to talk about how are you making your business operationally resilient. And I think people are very interested in measuring data. They want the data. They want to measure the resilience, and they can do it with the cybersecurity that gives them the data. It's automated. You've got the technology, and I think going into some of these companies talking at that level, what this gives them is the human analysis, if you like, which they're sort of welcoming, that you've got some data to actually take care of your people. It's not the be all and end all. It's a simplified narrative, but it gets people to that optimal place, which is ultimately what we're doing.
And I think also the fact that we looked at various ways of running this resilience diagnostic, and say we started this process with Joni 18 months ago, and there are other tools out there. Some sit on platforms, the 7 platforms of resilience, some have domains, the 5 domains. What we thought we'd do in terms of making this user friendly right across the board is we'd look what was going on right now, the most common use of well-being practices. Just look at the 4 key areas. They sometimes don't call body as we've done. They call it physical. They sometimes don't call purpose. They call it spiritual, etc., etc. So what we were able to do was to create the tool that could bolt on to any existing corporate well-being program in terms of maybe using it as a benchmark for their well-being practices. Now, the other key thing there is each of the dimensions, the whole thing with resilience is learnable. Now, there is probably, and I dare say it'll be developed sometime, some DNA test to work out whether you're born with these ninja qualities of resilience. But ultimately,
like Morgan.
Yeah. But ultimately, all of these competencies are learnable and are also measurable. And I think that's also the beauty of resilience. In terms of resilience, I would say we have tried to keep it, being very open and honest now, out of well-being until very recently. And the reason is most well-being initiatives within the corporate world are seen as soft skills, and they're nice to have things, and they often become just a box ticking activity for HR departments and stakeholders. Yeah, we've got a great well-being program. However, all of a sudden we need tangible actions to make people more robust. And it's not just in the moment, because we're seeing a lot of reactive practices right now for resilience. But the key thing, resilience, it actually makes you response ready for the next situation. And with regards to COVID, it's not going away anytime soon. Whatever we might hear, think, dream with vaccinations, and I don't want to be the harbinger of doom on this, but this is going to be around for a while. And in terms of the impact on this outside of health, you look at the impact on business, going back to where Lara started, which is how we met Morgan. We need to be prepared for the outfall of some fairly serious economic scenarios, which will call upon our resilience to be really, really robust. It keeps us response ready as well.
All right, I'm going to pause there for one moment, and we have a certification available for this tool. And so I want to just take a moment and let people know that if you want to learn how to use the Resilience Up tool, there's a short URL here on the screen, and maybe we could put it in the chat as well so people can link to it. That will let you learn more about how the tool works, and you go through this online course, and then you're able to use the tool. And I think maybe we could just take a moment here and who should use this?
Let me answer that real quickly. I think who should use this is anybody who thinks that they know everything and it's all settled and they have nothing left to learn and they're leading their organizations perfectly. I don't need help from anybody. You are the candidate for a tool like this because it will lay bare and lay open all of your fallacies, all of your preconceptions. For me, what I thought I knew versus what the tool helped expose for me was a delta like this. So if you are the arrogant leader that thinks you know everything, this tool is designed for you, because I guarantee you when you get through looking at the tool, and if you really answer it honestly and do a real self-assessment, you will realize this is what you thought, this is what it is, but that's okay, because now what's the plan to get from here to here? What's the plan to get well? What's the plan to do things? But if you don't have that assessment, if you don't have that self-awareness, if you're the guy at the party that's talking so loud and talking about yourself and you're not aware that you're boring people to tears, this is the type of tool. Look, that's the awareness part, right? If you don't know, you don't know. Those are the most dangerous people out there. This starts telling you what you need to know to improve. If you choose not to improve, that's up to you. But if you choose to improve, you'll leave a lasting mark and a legacy on your organization that says somebody took a stand, somebody made a difference, and we're better for it 1 to 2 years out now.
And I also think, Morgan, to add to that, the whole response ready, phrase that we've been banging on about the last few months. It is that. It's let's be proactive. Let's not wait for another awful thing to happen that we can moan about and say, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. Let's deal with this now. So the answer is anyone and everyone that really wants to be prepared, as Joni says, to be prepared to bounce forward with agility and energy. So for me, it doesn't, in my experience, as a very optimistic, motivated, positive person, my resilience has been compromised over the last 6-7 months. I've had some very low points, some very, dark moments, emotionally, physically, mentally. And I just feel that this is a tool for anyone and everyone that really wants to stay on top with their energy and their well-being.
If I can just add on to that and loop back to a previous question you asked, Josh, is that this last Wednesday, I was asked to do just a 90-minute talk at the local business school. And it's part of a 2-week general management program. So, of course, they said, Joni, could you come and talk about resilience? So I got all 33 people to take the resilience assessment. And we went, obviously at lightning speed, 90 minutes. And the most number of emails I've got back have been those general managers. So they're not at exec level, they're just general management level, who've said, I so love this and I'd love to do it with my team. So you asked the question earlier, Josh, and when I have done it with teams, it's amazing that sense of kind of sharing and being vulnerable and being honest. So to Lara's point, people who are generally seem to be the go-getting people who are being very honest about how they are struggling. And what is the unintended consequence of that is far better team cohesiveness. So a little bit of that ebb and flow where one team member is struggling, where someone else takes up that slack, and there's more accountability and maneuverability around each other. So I've found teams are far more collaborative when they've really, bared their soul, but they've got something concrete to speak about. So there's these landing pages, and not to push the report, but page 5 we specifically designed as tiny action points. So I think you said this right at the start of our call, Morgan, about how important it is to take these tiny habits. And Chris, Lara, and I are really in the movie of saying you don't have to do big things. It can be very tiny, specific things. Chris mentioned getting up from your desk for lunch. I mean, that's tiny. We say some of the tiny things, you don't have to go out and exercise for an hour. You just stand up every hour and do 10 squats at your desk. That can be your movement for the day. So when the team comes up with these collaborative, fun little, body movements or mind exercises or emotional sharing or sense of purpose for the team, there definitely is a bonding effect that happens afterwards.
Yeah.
We got a question from one of the participants here about this very thing. And maybe what we could do is we could look at that page of the report. I know Tom has the report handy, and we could could answer this question looking at that page. Tom, can we get that page Joni was talking about? So this is the Resilience Up profile that you're seeing on the screen. And I think it's page 6 that Joni was talking about.
Page 5, yeah, the last page.
Okay.
Chris, Lara, and I have a very similar mantra. We say we like to give simplicity at the far side of complexity. So there's a lot of depth, obviously, because it's embedded in the SAY report, but we've tried to keep it really short, and 5 pages was where we ended up.
Great. Anything else you want to highlight on the report, Lara, Chris?
Well, I think it's related to this last page.
What was the question, sorry, on that as well? Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
So we were talking just now about its effectiveness within the sort of team environment, but at a very personal level, a personal environment level. I guess I'm someone that, from an energy point of view, runs quite an even keel, and I like to think I'm quite self-aware. But we all have our down days. So going back to where we started talking about this many, many months ago, and Joni came up with this idea of a spinning top. So that's what I do exactly now, and it's a real great way to sort of shift my behaviours, in as much that I could be sat there feeling a bit low about something I don't know. So I kind of flick this spinning top in my head, and what do I actually need? Where am I leaking energy right now? And it could be something as simple, oh, you idiot, you've not eaten for 3 hours. Or it could be, do you know what, it's time to go out for a walk. Or it could be, in terms of emotions, I'm feeling upset. Why am I upset? Well, I might be upset because I've not picked a guitar off the wall for the last 6 hours, and I need to play the guitar for 5 minutes. So I just run this little routine through my head, and it takes seconds. And usually within seconds, it's like, right, this isn't a deep issue I've got here. I just need to eat some food. I just need to go for a walk. I just need to reframe my thoughts right now. Rather than sort of sitting there and contemplating your navel for hours and really catastrophizing the situation, why, it just gives you an exit route. Right, this is the action I need right now.
I also think, just to add to that, just thinking about the awareness piece there, is that as parents of 2 children who have gone through this past year in COVID time, not going to school, our own children having moved countries, having to experience a lot of turbulence and actually showing a lot of resilience. What it does is it promotes the narrative for you as parents to have with your children. And there's been a lot of stress in our house with what we've had to be, what we've had to deal with and what they've had to deal with. And just an example, our youngest daughter came back last night, and they've sorted out their maths groups, and she's struggling. And it was quite upsetting for her to be struggling in this group, and it was, what can I do about it? But what was lovely is, once you've raised that awareness, you've identified the emotional energy leak, you can then use your mind dimension to say, well, let's prioritize this. Let's talk to your teacher, and what can we do? And, she's gone off to school today a lot happier from being emotionally drained to now feeling like she's got an action that she can deal with. So for us as parents, I think this tool is a real bonus to use as well, because it enables you to have those conversations. But I think page 5, Josh, we were just scrolling down. The last thing to say, I think, just coming back to Joni's point, is that we've got there, what do you know of yourself that keeps you strong, energized and resilient? What should you keep doing, do more of, start doing? And we're just talking about, these sort of micro, small actionable steps, and having invested the time in understanding your thoughts, feelings and actions, what are your non-negotiables? And this is what we talk about. The 3 of us are very, very passionate about what are your non-negotiables that keep you in the optimal zone, of well-being. And, what are some of those non-negotiables for this week, for now, for a month?
That's a wonderful segue to next week's live stream, which I just want to take a moment and mention, because many of us have just been in holidays, but all over the world, people are going into holiday seasons. And we're going to have some real test of our resilience and non-negotiables as we go home for holidays or not going home for holidays. So next week, our EQ Friends show, Good Morning Emotions. I hope that you will join this awesome group to chat honestly about some of the feelings that come up as we think about holidays and either being able to go home or not go home and what that means. So another place to look at some of those non-negotiables, hopefully figure out how we're going to show up carefully. So now I want to do one more advertisement, which is just to say, for those of you who are listening, December 1st is Giving Tuesday, and we are doing a 24-hour campaign to grow funds for the pop-up festival so that we can bring more of the incredibly beautiful, powerful mental health and well-being resources to children everywhere. And just as we're doing this with corporations, and the pop-up festival is in 200 countries, and we want to bring this to many, many more children. So on December 1st, please make a donation. It can be small, but it's having lots of donations is really helpful because we can earn matching funds, bonus funds from your donation. So wait until December 1st in New York time. Those of you who are all over the world, New York time, December 1st is the time to start. All right, so now the four of you get a final word. What do you want to leave us with in terms of resilience and resilience up? Lara, let's start with you.
Wow, goodness. I want to use my optimism, Josh. I'm very high on optimism, and I am optimistic, and I think it plays a big part in our resilience. So for me, the future is bright. We will get through this, and we need to get through this in our own way that makes sense for us, not for someone else. So let's, individualize this, stay positive, be optimistic, but do the things that you need to do to be safe and have optimal well-being.
And I add into that, again, to thrive in the current climate, we need energy, we need to be agile, we need to adapt our skills maybe, because there are some complex challenges out there. In short, that defines what being resilient is. And I think what we did with our intention for designing the tool was to make this actionable. And I think it will make us accountable to ourselves, to our teams, by sort of just going through the diagnostic, obviously, and just seeing what comes out the other side.
By the way, I should mention, we put the slide up about the certification, but if you just want to take the assessment, maybe someone could put their email address in the chat, or just put our contact form in the chat. You can just go to the 6 Seconds website, fill in the contact form, and we can help you connect with Lara, Chris, and Joni to take it and try it out yourself. Yeah. Joni, what do you want to leave us with?
I want to be very practical and say it's overwhelming to try and be resilient. Choose one tiny habit. So if your non-negotiable is better sleep, and you're currently sleeping 6 hours, sleep 6 hours, 15 minutes, and then celebrate success. You want to aim for 7 hours for sure, but these tiny steps in the right direction, just choose one thing for a week and do that differently and sense that feeling of more energy and more agility.
Morgan, how about you?
Something we didn't talk about, get off social media, people. Quit thinking that people online have the answer to everything and that you should care about what people you've never met in another country say about what you're doing or what's going on. So for me, it's about, reduce your social media consumption, reduce your news consumption, get a different view of the world, get exercise, get out there, get healthy. And again, embrace the suck. Just realize, what other choice do you have except to get through this? So my mindset is, I'm getting through this one way or the other. All you do is point me to the top of the mountain. I don't know how I'll get there, but that's where I'm headed. Follow me. That's where we're going. And that's the type of leadership I'm looking for. That's the way I want to be, is that regardless of the obstacles, I'll figure out a way to get there. But I certainly don't do it by listening to negative naysayers on social media telling me the world is coming to an end. It's not coming to an end. There will be a world here tomorrow and a year from now. Change your mindset, change your world, get some better habits, take their assessment tool, and work with Lara, Chris, and Joni to change how you guys do business. There's an unpaid commercial for you guys.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you all. And I appreciate you all being here today and the work you're doing on resilience. I know that there's a lot of suck out there, and not only are we going to embrace it, we're going to make it better by bringing more tools for people to be able to work their way through it. Crush the suck.
That's right.
All right. Thank you all very much, and I hope everyone has a beautiful
Thank you, Joe.